Hey everyone, welcome. So I think that for this video, I'll scoot forward a little bit so you can see me. I felt that for this particular strength video, we can use weights. We've been using the tubing, but we'll use weights today. So before we actually get into the strength, this is kind of the breakdown, because once again, when I actually go into the video, we're just moving it, so just moving. So make sure that you've already warmed up, or you've done something before you go into this video. You don't want to just jump into this video with a cold body. Don't do that to yourself. That's how people get injured. So during the breakdown, we're going to talk about proper technique with dumbbells, because unlike it's right over here on my couch, our resistance tubing, the likelihood for you to get, for injury is higher with dumbbells, because you can utilize gravity versus the resistance tubing where you cannot. That's why I like it, because you can't G. And weights, you can use momentum. So I want to talk about posture, and then also too kinesthetic awareness, and that's just you being able to kind of be aware of your own body, because it's very important, especially since I'm not there to physically correct you. But even still, you may be traveling somewhere and you may be watching this video to work out, so it's very important for you to feel what it feels like to be in correct form. Why is correct form so important? Number one, it reduces your risk of being injured. People injure themselves. The likelihood of you being injured is higher if your form is incorrect. So it reduces our risk of injury. And then also too, results. You don't want to strengthen the incorrect muscles, and then also too, like, we're putting in work, so you might as well see some results. So there's two exercises in particular that I want to discuss that are going to be in the strength video with the dumbbells, that I really want to make sure that you keep this in mind, because when the music gets going and I'm thinking about counting and stuff like that, I'm still going to say it, but I want to take the time to talk about it now, because that's how important it is. These two exercises are deadlifts and rows. And the reason why they're very important, or I want to talk about them, is because you could injure your back if you do them incorrectly. So before we even get to deadlifts deeper, let's talk about using the proper amount of weight, because that's another way you can injure your back, is by lifting a weight that's too heavy. So I have two sets of weights that I'll be using, because some exercises I'm strong. Let's say you have to capitalize on your strengths. So there's certain exercises where I can use heavier weights, and then there's certain exercises where I need lighter weights. So a case in point would be, if we're working the legs, your legs can take the weight because they walk around with you on them. So don't be afraid to grab your heavier set of weights, whether it be 5 pounds or whatever. And then usually things like upper body or shoulders, those usually sometimes require lighter weights. So how do you know if it's the correct weight? Number one, you want to make sure that you actually feel some resistance. Like if you have 1 pound weights and you can just curl that all the live long day, then chances are you're really not getting the full benefit of the exercise. But if you have one weight and it's so heavy and you're contorting your body and rocking to try to get it up, and that weight's too heavy and you're still not getting the benefits of the exercise. So a good weight to choose from would be one that you can, number one, control. You have to be able to control it, because there will be some exercises, one in particular, where we will be leaning back in a chair, lifted, or if you are near your couch, you'll be laying on your couch on your back. We'll be doing a bench press. So it's very important to make sure that you have a weight that you can actually control. So choose your weight. No one knows you better than you. So choose your weight accordingly. So when it comes to deadlifts and rows, the number one thing that you want to be aware of is the placement of the spine. So, easy way to think about your deadlift is, let's say we're sitting in a chair. We get up from the chair, we keep our torso straight, and it's almost like, you know, when you were a kid and someone's like, come here, I need to tell you a secret. So you kind of lean in. That's how you want to think, leaning in. Notice I'm putting my chair back. My knees are slightly bent, never locked. You never lock the knees. Knees are slightly bent, but they're not deeply bent when I'm doing a squat. Slightly bent. My back is straight. You will have your weights. Keep your weights close to you, rest them on your thighs so that you do not strain the lower back. Now keep in mind, you might feel something in your lower back because deadlifts do work the lower back, also known as the erector spinae. It's the muscle that travels through your spine. So it does work the erector spinae, but it's also working the hamstrings. So you want to make sure that you have the weights on your thighs, your abs are engaged, leaning forward like The Secret. You rub the weights down to mid-shin, and then you pull up, and then you squeeze. My legs slightly extend, but they do not lock. They slightly extend. When I bend over, I hinge from my hips. That slight bend in my knees. Like someone's telling me a secret, and I push through my heels to come up. Be very mindful not to do this. You will hurt yourself. So think of lifting your chest, squeezing your back muscles, and peering forward like you're looking over the ledge, or you're leaning in for someone to tell you a secret. That's your deadlift. So, spoiler alert. With your rows, it's the exact same body placement as a deadlift. It's the exact same one. So, when I'm doing my rows, we've done these before where we're squeezing here, the exact same placement. My knees are slightly bent to protect my back. My belly button is pulled back to my spine. My shoulders are not rounded forward. They're squeezing back. See my back muscles squeezing? You want to think back cleavage. It could be considered crude, but if it helps you get the image, make the cleavage with your back. Or if you want something a little less risque, you want to think of a piece of paper being in between your shoulder blades, and every time you pull that weight in, you're squeezing that piece of paper the entire time. Or if you've had the pleasure of actually having me live in class, and I come to you and I put my fingers in between your shoulder blades, thinking of squeezing the palm of my hand. So that's about deadlifts. I also want to talk about triceps, because that's another one that gets kind of cheated. And I think every muscle deserves its day in the sun. So with triceps, we're going to be using one weight. And because we're using one weight, I recommend that it be a heavier one, because the weight is being dispersed through both of your arms. Now, I have two different versions. So the first version, if you're able to lift your arms over your head completely straight, this is the first version. My elbows are close to my ears. Biceps are close to my ears. And they stay that way as the weight goes on. I'll turn to the side so you can see. Do you see the 90-degree angle that's being created with my elbows? That's what you want to think about. And then you just extend. Down and extend. Almost like you're tossing something over your head. But don't rock the body. Now, the second one, if you cannot lift your arms, this one's a little bit more tricky to get the full range of motion of the triceps, is because subconsciously we like to cheat. We probably don't do it intentionally, at least I hope not, but subconsciously we like to cheat. And it's this one. You've probably seen this. It's called a tricep kickback. Now, this is what people normally do. The biggest difference is the emphasis on what's happening. Here, my emphasis is up and it's closer to the front of my body. In order to get the triceps, you have to go slightly behind. So a good landmark on your body is think of placing the weight right on your hip and lift. Now, if you're doing the single arm version, you have a little bit more of a challenge because we're doing both arms. So you owe yourself another set on the side. So if you're doing the single arm version, please remember to go to your other side. But if you're able to have the arms up, doesn't matter the weight, grip the head and reach. That's our triceps. So I think those are the 3 exercises that I wanted to make sure that we covered. So that's pretty much. Make sure also too that you utilize your breath. Breathing is very important. You want to breathe on what's called the eccentric contraction, and that's when the muscle is lengthening. So for example, when I'm doing a bicep curl, when my muscle or when the joint is coming closer to the joint, when the joint is closing, coming closer to the body, that's the shortening of the muscle. That's a concentric contraction. When it's lengthening away from the body, that's the eccentric contraction. You always want to exhale on the eccentric contraction. So with a bicep curl, you're exhaling down. With a tricep extension, you're exhaling up. With a row, now rows are tricky because you're working the back. So when you're lengthening the back muscle, I had to think about it. Yeah, you're exhaling on the rows. So whenever you squeeze, the back one's the one that's tricky because here it's lengthening, here we're contracting it because it's working to pull it in. When you're doing your bench press, when your arms straighten, deadlifts, when you come up, the back is the only one that feels weird, and that's because with the muscle extraction, just like if you're doing rows, it's lengthening when it goes away from the body, so it's squeezing. So whenever your elbows are in, that's when the back is lengthening, contracting to hold it. So the back one's tricky. But other than that, that's about it. So I will see you in the next video. Let's lift some weights. Let's pump some iron, shall we?